Hello, and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today Vernon Brock. Vernon is the founder of the Brock Group and one of the most trusted authorities on winning large and complex deals. For decades, he's been focused on the growth of companies he works with, whether they're IBM, Cisco, emerging enterprises, or fast-growing franchises he's owned. Vernon has also served as a senior account team and sales manager for some of the most well-known sales technology companies in the country over the last 4 decades, including big companies like IBM, Juniper, and Cisco. He's also the author of the book, Mastering Large Sales Opportunities, 10 Blind Spots Every Sales Leader Must Know to ensure they capture and win multi-million-dollar accounts, which I'm really excited to dive in and learn more about. Vernon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and your audience.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I'm really excited to learn about your sales background, your sales experience, your book, and then your number one top sales secret and how all of our listeners tuning in can execute that to make more money today. So why don't you kick us off first with, who's Vernon, your sales background, and then we'll get into also a little bit about the book.
Yeah, sure. So I used to teach a class over at the local community college on with mentorship, and it was on sales. It was actually a Shark Tank kind of thing. And what I would start off was that I was born. Before I was born, I was selling. And what I mean by that, my mother went through 40 hours of labor to have me. Okay. 3 days. Think of that. They didn't have cesarean during those days. I was 12 3/4 pounds and 23 3/4 inches long. I was 3 months old when I was born. I'm like, Mom, it's worth it. It's worth it, Mom. So I was selling. I say that just as a way of saying that was part of it. But then I started to, I'd cut grass. I'd go deliver newspapers, talk with people, and, kind of be entrepreneurial at that age. But then I got into high school and college, and I actually went to a shoe company, and they taught me a really good program on sales. From that, I went out of college.
And when you say a shoe company, is this like selling Steve Madden's, like door to door or retail?
No. This was a high-end shoe company where you had to. It was customer service. It was really customer service.
Got it. Account management.
Training on. I mean, you've probably walked into sales environments where they're on the phone and they're talking to their friend, and they don't talk to you. They taught you how not to do that so that you were successful, and you gave them a white glove experience on how to, buy a pair of shoes, whether it was women's, men's, or children's, which, by the way, men's were a lot easier to sell than women's shoes, because they would ask you for one shoe and then they'd bring out 10 and then they'd buy the first one anyway. So,
oh, wow.
Where men, it says, give me an 8.5 on the left foot and I'll try it on maybe and I'll go out. But anyway,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so from there I went. So I would classify that as more transactional sales. And out of college, I went to work in the computer industry with a company called Rolm Corporation, and they competed with IBM. So we weren't IBM. We had to prove something different. So it was always kind of like proving yourself. And they had a year sales training course, not only for sales, but also for programming, because there weren't software packages around in those days. So I had to program it myself, which gave me a foundation that was phenomenal for being in high-tech sales for the next 3-4 decades.
I love that they had a year-long sales training program. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was. And what it was, it showed you, we had to go literally door to door with calculators as our first sale. And literally one of the techniques was you'd have the cord in the hand and say, where do I plug this in? To get past the gatekeeper. So it was
so awesome.
And I remember the times when I'm like making calls and it's raining and poured down rain. And those, they didn't have cell phones. So I went out to a phone booth and I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I kept doing it. And ultimately it came into where I went to work for some startup companies, a company that got bought by IBM. We were $50 million when I joined them, turned into a $1 billion company, and IBM bought us. The same.
How long did it take you to go from 50 to $1 billion?
7 years.
7 years. That's pretty awesome. And then what were you selling there? Was it
telecommunications PBXs?
Okay.
So the sales cycle was anywhere from 3 months to a year and a half, 2 years. So they're large, $50,000 to $1 million deal in those days, which was a lot of money. And you were, you had to go through and understand who's involved in the sale, and that's what makes a complex sale a little bit different. From there, I went to a company that was a $3 million company, startup out of California. Went from $3 million to $1 billion. Got bought by Cisco.
What? While you were there?
I was employee 92. I was in both of those companies. I was in President's Club over 11 times. 11 times I went to Hawaii. I'm sorry.
I love that.
Yeah, I had to do it,
If you pick up my book, I talk about going to my dad's President's Club for CA Technologies. And then we created this, global award for anyone that uses Seamless and makes over 6 or 7 figures in sales. Because President's Club changes your life, man.
Oh, yeah, it does.
I mean,
well, the beauty of it, Brandon, was that it was you had to be 130% of quota to get there. It wasn't 100%.
Not over 100%. You got to really crush it.
You had to overachieve. And I was the only one. I was the sales rep of the year in the Mid-Atlantic area. Wow. And then I was the sales rep of the year for the entire company for that $3 million company I mentioned.
And what did that $3 million, what was the product, the price point, and the sales cycle?
Yeah, so the product was a networking product. If you're familiar with Cisco kind of networking, it was a technology that was different than but it was for networking. So we sold to like Nations Bank, or we sold to MCI and Sprint and Motorola and those kind of companies. So they were large ticket. I mean, my first sale was General Electric Corporation. It was $13 million deal. Wow. And it was, it took 2 years. Mellon Bank, I sold, it took 5 years because they went through the sales cycle. They came through and said, we're going to go through with it. They didn't do it. Next year they came back. We did it again. But I was the last man standing because I was still there with them. And I walked through them with it. And I had that trust factor, and also the ability to be able to work with them and show them the solution. It was it's funny because, and I would encourage salespeople that, it's a hard road to go to begin with, especially on these large ticket kind of sales that are $1 million, $500,000, whatever. It took me 8 months to get started. And if they would have fired me in the first 8 months, they'd have lost their best sales rep for the next, 7 years. I never missed a monthly commission or a quarterly bonus during that time.
So
because,
awesome.
if they had the sales contest, I would make sure that I made the calls. But the biggest thing is I would do things that others wouldn't. And
that was what I was going to ask you over that 7-year period. What differentiated you to be in the top 1% over there versus other people?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that I did was that I did things that others didn't. So I had my own home office back in, way early because I didn't like the cubicles. I didn't like the sound going back and forth. So I would just go, and as an outside sales rep, you're able to go outside. So I would just go and make cold calls from my house. And I would get meetings, and I never got turned down by a receptionist to get a meeting. One time was the only time that they kind of put me, and that's in my book actually. The lady, he threw me out because he didn't like anybody. So
that's awesome. How'd you get around everyone, to make sure that you got through the gatekeepers, like you'd mentioned?
Yeah, I think if you treat people with kindness and just, you're kind of, you're like I would call the operator, who was the person that I was selling telecommunications to. And I would say, look, I know you're busy. If you need somebody to, if somebody calls, just put me on hold. I'll wait for you. So I was but if you think about it, she was the most important person to talk to because nobody talks to her and she runs the telephone system. So she would tell me who to go to. I got friends with her. Who's the person that would be the decision maker? How do I get to them? Can you put me through to them? And they would ultimately do that.
Wow, I love it. Okay. So then that was networking, right? 3 million to $1 billion, which is insane. 7 years. That's so fast. What's next?
Yeah. So after that, I had the startup bug. So because we got bought and I went to other ones, I went out in the meantime, I'd always done on the side on my own. I had friends that I would invest in so that they could run their businesses and I would help them. We owned 13 Jackson Hewitt franchises. We had a vending machine company that I had friends.
Jackson Hewitt, is that like cars or what is that?
Jackson Hewitt is a tax service.
Tax service, got it.
Yeah, kind of like a H&R Block.
Sweet, awesome.
Right. So we did that, and then, but I had ultimately I went back into the high tech world and went with a number of. I was with I counted it yesterday, 12 different startups during the time because some startups take a rocket ship and they keep going. Others get off fast and then they crash.
Yeah, they crater.
Yeah, they crater, and some of them are not run well.
What are the differences between the ones that make it and the ones that fail?
That's a good question. I think it. I look at like a racehorse, the jockey, and the track. If you got the right jockey and you got the right trainer and you got the right horse, if you're on the wrong track, you may not do so well. So you can have the right product at the wrong time. And I was with a couple where I call it they were a pig's tail. They were too early, twirly. They were twirly.
Twirly. That's good.
Right. So they were too early. But if you have, so the jockey is really running things. If you got a good leader, and I see what you've done with your company, and that filters down the energy, the mission, keeping them focused, but hiring good people, let them do their job, make them accountable, pay them well, and let them have fun.
I love that. I mean, it's the jockey, the horse, or the track. Yeah. It's all of it.
Yeah, if you don't have, you could be at the wrong track with the right horse. It's muddy and he's not a mudder and, that kind of thing. But the big thing is leadership and, having the right execution, knowing what you can and what you can't do. There were two other startups that I went to that got bought. There was one that raised literally $280 million in January of 2001. By August of 2002, they were down to 20 million.
How do you walk through? I mean, because, I've only raised a few $1 million and we've grown really quickly. I just can't imagine going through 100, it's hard to burn 40 million or 20 million or 10 million in a year, let alone 200 million.
Well, some of that was that they bought like factories, right? They were building an optical switch, and what happened was that the foundries that they bought were making this, high tech kind of optical kind of equipment. And when the market kind of cratered in 2000, 2001, so they didn't make it, but they're still around, but they weren't who they thought they were. And then I've had other leaders that were really one basically said, I don't care, relationships don't matter. I don't care if the product works. I just want their money. Wrong approach. They weren't going to.
God.
I quit that day. I'm like, I'm out of here. I can't.
It sounds terrible.
It was.
Like you're never going to long-term be successful if you have that type of mindset, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your favorite gig? What was the favorite thing you did?
Probably the networking company. It was so much fun. We had 800 people. Everybody was on the same page. We had this product that was, ahead of the market and was competing against the other guys, the Nortels and the other big companies. And what happened was that we had a better story. We had a better idea of it. But the fun was that you could deliver something and you knew, one, that it was going to work, and secondly, that you were going to be supported and the client was going to be supported. So that was fun and you got paid well.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. So you're like, hey, best of all three worlds over there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way I look at it.
That's awesome. And, okay. So, you've had a hell of a career. You've also written this awesome book. So tell me about, winning these, mastering large sales opportunities.
Yep.
10 blind spots every sales leader must know to ensure they capture and win multi-million-dollar accounts. So 10 blind spots. I've got my notebook, by the way, on my iPad. So real quick, what are the 10 blind spots?
Oh, no, you don't ask me for all of them. One of them is that you got to understand the organization. And a lot of times they think that you're talking to the right person, and you're not. You're talking to one person that has some influence, but how is the decision made in a large, complex sale? It's not just one person. It's not just one organization. I look at kind of the top-down, bottom-up kind of organization, looking at, I'll give you a great example, is that I was working with a large company that was building a new network. I talked to the engineers. They loved what we did. The vice president of engineering, I got to him, and they loved it, but we couldn't do what they wanted. So being truthful and honest with them, we basically said, hey, look, we can't do what you want. We don't think anybody else can, but you can verify that. But working with purchasing and management and marketing, so the top down, bottom up, east and west, north, south is the way I look at it as a compass, so that you're talking to the other folks to make sure that, are they friends? Is the decision maker friends with the engineer? Then maybe they're golf buddies, or maybe they go out and play golf, or maybe they're running around with each other. Who knows? But what influence? You might think that, hey, that person isn't influential or has any kind of idea to it. And then understanding who, and I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Holden. Jim Holden is the power-based selling.
Yeah.
Yes. So he talks about
power base.
Right. He talks about the power base and the Renard, the fox, who in an organization is the individual that can get things done when no one else is doing it. So that's one of the secrets. Find out who is that person that's going to get, when the budgets are tight and nobody's hiring, who gets hired, or they buy in because that individual can get things done. And you find them in organizations if you look deep enough. You might think that, hey, the VP of engineering might have the responsibility for what you're doing, or the VP of marketing, or whoever you're selling to. But who else involved in that, and what influence do they have? You can have a champion, but they may not be the Renard, the one who can get things done when everybody else can't get anything done.
I love that. And everyone, so that's Vernon Brock's book, Mastering Large Sales Opportunities, 10 Blind Spots Every Sales Leader Must Know to Ensure They Capture Win Multi-Million-Dollar Accounts. So if you're working large enterprise deals, mid-market deals, and you know that there's multiple decision makers, whatever, make sure you read this book, because it will help identify all the things that you need to be saying and doing so that you can call bullshit on yourself, right? To make sure that you're doing everything you need to do, mapping out the account, building the relationships, identifying all the sales objections, unspoken sales objections, identifying all the things that are going to kill the deal, and also to make sure that you're not smoking the hopium, hoping and praying enterprise deals close, when in reality, you've got these different blind spots that are going to kill it.
Yep.
So Vernon, his book lays it all out for you. So if you're
you can get that book at www.winlargeaccountsgroup.com.
That's winlargegroupaccounts.
No, winlargeaccountsgroup.com.
Winlarge Accounts Group. Got it.
Yeah, you can. We'll send you a book out if you go to that website, and we'll send it out to you.
Awesome. Great. So this is what everyone's dying for, Vernon.
Okay.
Your number one top sales secret. So out of everything that you've learned, if you had to go from $0 to $1 million in millions in sales, if you had to start from scratch, and you went from broke to rich to broke or whatever it may be. What is your number one sales secret to get to President's Club, our 7-figure club, right? Our goal here is to get everyone into the 7-figure club, which means you generate over $1 million in sales.
Yep.
What's your top secret for people to get there as fast as possible?
It's not about you.
It's not about you.
Think about that wherever you are.
Okay, go ahead. Explain what that is.
So I look at myself as being the orchestra leader in an organization. So when I'm the liaison from the client to the company and the company to the client. I don't have the responsibility I don't have the authority to lose a deal, which I've gone to management and said, look, here's the situation. This is what the client is saying. So I'm the liaison to them. It's not about me. It's about my client. It's about my company. So I got to build that balance between working with the client and working with the company on the best interests of both of them. So representing that to them on both sides. Here's what the company's willing to offer. Are you willing to accept it? And then bringing in the different components of the organization to understand this is what we need to do to get this business. Do we want it? And so do we go with that? But there's a great article on what makes great salespeople. And I've always used this when I've interviewed to hire salespeople. But the perfect balance is between these two greatest attributes of successful salespeople, highly successful salespeople. One is the drive, and the other is empathy. If you're too driven, you piss people off. If you're not driven enough, you won't make your deal. So if you're too empathetic, you could be there all day and you could work it. But if you get that balance right, being empathetic and you're driven, you will make that 7-figure income, that 7-figure number that you're looking for, and know that it's not just about you. Know it's about the client and about the company and about the solution and providing that, the knowledge, the skills, the trust, and the knowledge to bring it forth. But having that drive, not too overdriven.
That's awesome. I love the, you got to have the drive, but if you're too motivated, you're going to piss a lot of people off if you don't match it with empathy. How do you, this is something that I always struggled with. How do you interview and hire for drive and motivation? Or for empathy? Like if you were looking to build this massive sales team, 1 to 1,000, and you had to start hiring today, and those were your two key factors.
Well, I think you can look at individuals and find. I mean, I remember an interview I had where I could be really kind of laid back during a process and an interaction with each other. And the sales VP, which was part of that company that I told you about, said, I just don't think you have the drive. And I leaned across the table to him and I said, you don't know me. Let me show you why I am. And then I went into, so it's kind of the thing where you can see the energy, you can see the value of they're driven, they're self-driven. What have they done in the past? What are you going to do? Show me that you've done that. As well as on the empathy part, can you sit back and learn? So can you do that drive and empathy in a discussion with somebody, right?
Yeah, so basically the real-time learning, coachability, empathy, and connection with your prospects and even probably your peers or your sales leaders.
One of the things that I've always kind of looked for, if I've interviewed somebody, and they don't get back to me, they're off the charts.
Yeah.
They're off the radar, and they're like, why didn't I get to the next step? Well, you never got back to me.
You never followed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous. That's a great.
99% of success, or 90% of success, like Yogi Berra said, is just being there, right? Just showing up.
Being there and follow up and showing up. Awesome. Well, Vernon, where can, if it's not about you, where can the audience start to, how does the audience start to apply this secret? Like if I'm listening as a new rep, a senior rep, you name it, and I'm hearing your story. Hey, it's not about you. It's about the prospect. Like, how do I get started applying this?
Well, I think what you do is you start to reach out to other folks and you ask them. It's more of a questioning. The more that you question and the more that you make it about them, they will tell you how to sell to them. If you try to sell to them, they will turn you off.
I love that. They will tell you how to sell to them.
They will tell you. They'll tell you. If you ask the questions and ask them about, what are they trying to accomplish? What is it that I know what keeps you up at night and what's your pain point, all those. But really just being real to people and understanding what their situation is and where they go. I got a great example of a client that I was already over quota. I was already going to Hawaii. Awesome. The guy calls me and I call him to find out if we got this deal. I had 6 deals in 1 month, which was uncalled for. Nobody had ever.
Especially those large enterprise deals.
Yeah, I had 6 in 1 week because I had pumped them out there and got them out there, and I was closing left and right, and I was over quota for the year. And it was so this guy says, I don't know, I just can't make a decision. I said, and I didn't do this as a technique. I just did it out of the sincerity of my heart. The guy had he had some heart condition. He was working himself up, couldn't figure it out. I said, I'm going to make your job easy, John. He said, what? I said, I'm rescinding my proposal. He said, you can't do that. I said, why?
I'm rescinding my proposal. That's good.
Right. I took it off the table. And when I realized at that point, again, I didn't do it as a technique. Yeah. I was like, all of a sudden I became important to him. I wasn't going to call him anymore. I wasn't taking him to lunch. I got that deal, by the way.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, they call that the takeaway close. Hey, yeah, I'm rescinding the proposal. I mean, was that just like, did you say that because you just didn't want to play the back and forth anymore? You played it long.
Yeah, it was like, it was 2 things. One, I was over quota, so I didn't need to sell. Secondly is that I didn't want to, he was on the phone. He was, visibly, it wasn't visible, but I could hear that he was really going through it. He had a heart problem. I didn't want him to have a heart attack and die about it. It's not the end of the world, no matter which way you go. I know I've got the better solution for you. I know I'm more expensive, but if you need to go make that decision, go ahead, because I was free.
Yeah.
I was
That's
over
the power of having a full pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent point, Brandon.
Yeah. And you think the reason why you were able to create that full pipeline was because of this secret, it's not about you?
Yep. Not about me and doing the things that others wouldn't do.
Doing the hard things that others won't do.
Doing the hard things that others wouldn't do. They're like, how come you're always getting sales? I'm like, well, because I'm working it.
Right. Gosh, I love that. Others won't do. Awesome. Yeah. I love it, guys. Well, you've got the full pipeline. I've got like 15 pages worth of notes here on my iPad. I'm rescinding my proposal over quota. Do the hard things. It's not about you. This was great. And you got to have the right balance of drive and motivation matched with empathy. Yeah. Vernon Brock, where can the audience connect with you, learn from you, follow you for more? So
I'm on LinkedIn. I have a leadership podcast that I do, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Vernon Brokke, and it's but my website is brokkegroup.com, BROKKE group.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. Make sure you follow Vernon on all the social media sites. Pick up his new book and start applying this today. It's not about you. It's about the prospect. And you got to have the right empathy and motivation. Do the hard things that others don't do. And for those tuning in, make sure you subscribe. Every Monday and Thursday, we've got a new episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. You can tune into all the episodes on iTunes, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, and at secretsalesbook.com. Pick up a copy of this chapter in the book and tune into other episodes at secretsalesbook.com. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next show.